This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up on this week's programme, with Easter approaching, the police are warning that homemade firecrackers can injure and even kill.
It is very, very dangerous to take ingredients and to mix it together, because during this procedure a lot of dangers coming up.
The EAC is investigating illegal installations of photovoltaics.
There is information that illegal installations of renewable energy sources generation units have been made, as well as unauthorized increases in the installed capacity of existing installations, which may have a significant impact on the network.
And beware of processionary caterpillars.
They can kill a dog, and especially if the hairs are stick on their tongues, in their mouths, or inside their nose, or in their eyes. And if there are many quantities of these hairs, maybe they cause their life.
Easter is coming, and here in Cyprus, along with the red eggs and all the celebrations and church services, that usually means bonfires in the perimeter of the church and firecrackers. We've had over the years tragic results with people being injured. I think there's even been a death or two over the years. And I'm joined on this week's programme by Odysseas Papadopoulos, who is the National Commander of Police Explosive Ordnance Disposal, to talk about the problem, because the police did announce that they're carrying out an awareness campaign about the dangers of fireworks. Odysseas, this comes up every year, difficult job because of the traditions, but let's start at the beginning. Fireworks are actually illegal in Cyprus, aren't they? Firecrackers and so on?
Yes. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation, and actually to thank you for giving to our voice the opportunity to reach every citizen in Cyprus, because as you said in your introduction, fireworks are illegal, firecrackers are illegal, but also are very, very dangerous. So every year before Easter, police announce a campaign in order to maintain the public safety and to give instructions and a lecture to our juveniles in order to be away from those very, very dangerous objects.
Now, let me ask you how these things get into the country, because surely you can't import firecrackers, can you?
No. The Inspector of Explosives is the competent authority in order to give license to import fireworks, but because within European Union countries, containers are not inspected. So the huge quantity of illegal fireworks and firecrackers are coming to Cyprus through those containers. And of course we have another vulnerability, is the ceasefire line, which is very, very difficult to inspect every meter of that line. So it's another vulnerability for importing illegally firecrackers and fireworks.
OK, but you just said that they come in containers from other European countries. That means they have to go through customs. So what on earth are customs people doing about this? Because we hear when they find drugs and so on, they open containers. Why aren't they opening all containers and checking for things like this?
It is actually impossible to check every container. I don't want to speak on behalf of customs, but as I know, it is impossible to inspect every container. They inspect a container that they assume, or they have any information that some illegal import are taking place. So it is very, very difficult to identify or to discover, if I may use the word, illegal fireworks, because most of the times they don't declare as a fireworks, but as a general goods.
So the paperwork isn't honest either. OK, well, I don't suppose there's much we can do about that unless they look back over past convictions and keep checking the same companies that have imported these in the past. But let's talk about the safety issue, if we may, because that's the real reason for talking to you about this. A lot of youngsters here make their own firecrackers, don't they? Where do they get the ingredients to do that from?
Okay, yes, you're absolutely right. But what I have to say, it is very, very dangerous to take ingredients and to mix it together because during this procedure, a lot of dangers coming up. Most of the dangers are during the mixing or during the containing those mixtures in a container, and by the time that they are trying to initiate those, and most of the times those objects are made of metal or wood or whatever, so they produce a lot of fragmentation. And I have to say that by the time of the explosion, 400 degrees Celsius are producing from that explosion, and imagine 10,000 feet per second of those fragmentation, so that we see and saw all of that tragic results on their hands, on their eyes, on their bodies. And a lot of youngsters, as you said in your introduction, are injured through the years.
Well, they've lost fingers and all sorts, haven't they? It's tragic. Yes. Now, I know you can't do a lot about the tradition of putting the bonfire and the effigy of Judas outside the church. How far are you given a hand in helping here from the clergy? Do the priests actually talk to the congregation and say, please don't do this? Because one tragedy can spoil the whole of Easter and a lot longer afterwards if it's a terrible tragedy for whole sets of people.
Exactly. But allow me, please, to rephrase something. This is not a tradition. This is a very bad, a very dangerous habit. So we don't have to see it as a tradition. We have to have the maturity in order to identify that this is not a tradition. So in our campaign, we invite everybody, because every authority, every competent authority are very welcome in order to assist us with one purpose, to maintain the public safety. And finally, this year, we are going to have 0 injuries, because this is actually our purpose. As police, we are built our campaign in 2 pillars. First of all, it's to be proactive, patrolling some specific areas, and the other pillar is to be reactive in order to be on place as fast as we can in order to maintain arrests or seize of those very dangerous objects.
You say it's not a tradition, so when did all of this start? Because in actual fact, in many neighbourhoods, it's almost like gang warfare, with one group of kids stealing wood from building sites to build the biggest bonfire, and another group of kids either trying to destroy it or stealing wood from that bonfire to build their bonfire. It's all got very un-Eastery, I think, Odysseus.
You are absolutely right. But unfortunately, this is not only Cyprus phenomenon. If you see in Greece, we have the same situation. I don't know if you know it, but a few days before, a 33-year-old man lost his life in Crete from a nautical player. It's not a Cyprus phenomenon. But in our island, it's a small island, as you see, as you know, and the people at the Easter night go to the church. Churches are very, very crowded, so it's very, very easy to injure somebody else if you manage to initiate a firecracker or an improvised cracker. It is very, very possible to injure somebody else. And we have a lot of examples through years. And when we are approaching to juveniles in lyceum and gymnasiums, we are trying to give them examples from our approaches, from our response in a lot of incidents. So we present them raw videos sometimes and raw pictures with dates, with place, with a specific stories from life in order to give them their data and to give them the opportunity to decide by themselves that they have to be away from those very dangerous objects.
So I presume you go to schools as well, do you? And how much support do you get not only from the teaching staff, but also possibly from the parents? Are the parents invited to attend the talks you give in schools, or perhaps you give after-hours talks? Because in actual fact, decent parental control can put a stop to a lot of this, can't it?
Actually, parents are a key factor for that. But they are very welcome. We invited them at school lectures, and sometimes we organize some lectures after hours in order to be able to come after they have finished their work. And as I said before, every parent in Cyprus has to be aware, especially this period, in order to know where their kids are. It is very important to see the signs. It is very important to know where their kids are. It is very important to know that we as police, we don't want to be punishers. We don't want to be next to them. We want to support them. And of course, we want to know that our goal is not to increase arrests or seized, but our goal is to keep our children safe.
Well, that is the most important thing, isn't it? I'm sure it's a very, very busy time for the police at this time of year. Finally, let me ask you whether or not, is there a hotline? Suppose somebody, I don't know, living in a village realises that several of the kids are hiding behind the sheds and putting these things together or whatever. Can they call somebody without having to, if you like, be a witness, and so that you think, okay, maybe we need to visit that village and have a look and then talk to the kids and confiscate anything that they've made?
Of course, they can call to the European emergency number, it's 112, and the phone is ringing at the divisional police headquarters of each district. So if somebody calls 112, the divisional police district is going to answer the phone, and they are going to make some consultation, if you want, without taking any name. And if there is an emergency, the divisional police district, they are going to call us in order to respond. Or if it's not an emergency, we are going to respond the next day, or we are going to increase the patrolling, or even we are going to organize a lecture or to speak with the local authorities in order to maintain the safety net for that village, for that community. As I told you before, our main goal is to maintain the public safety. And that is our main care.
Well, the best of luck in your endeavours, Odysseas. Thank you very much indeed for joining me on the programme. That is Odysseas Papadopoulos, National Commander of Police Explosive Ordnance Disposal. And if you do come across anybody who is preparing firecrackers or whatever, please inform the authorities and let's have no accidents this year.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
You may recall us speaking to our Minister of Energy and Commerce a while back about his plan for photovoltaics for all, and a lot of people have taken up the idea of reducing their electricity bills by placing photovoltaics on their roofs. Now, of course, it's a huge saving if it's a big company or a factory, but even single houses can save money, and that's the enthusiastic part of people putting PVs on their houses. However, We know that there is a containment problem because of the size of our grid, but more importantly for the Electricity Authority of Cyprus, they've discovered that a lot of people are putting photovoltaics up illegally. So we're joined by their spokesperson, Christina Papadopoulou, to explain what the problem is. Christina, I know we need permission to put the photovoltaics up because you need to know how many are up there, but are people really just putting them up without telling anybody?
There is information that illegal installations of renewable energy sources generation units have been made, as well as unauthorized increases in the installed capacity of existing installations, which may have a significant impact on the network, endangering the safety and reliability of the electrical system. For example, someone has approval for 7 kilowatts and increased it in a few months or in 1 year, 2 years, without informing EEC to, say, 9 kilowatts. According to the plan of the Ministry of Energy, the photovoltaic system must not exceed 100% of the consumption of an establishment. After the customer's connection to the EEC network, a certificate of successful inspection is issued. The aim is to use photovoltaics to produce electricity for self-consumption. That is, each household can produce as much electricity as it needs. But because this balancing, for example, at any given time, all the electricity produced is as much as the consumption of the household, the grid comes to act as a battery, absorbing the excess of a photovoltaic system production. So the EEC distribution management has sent to all associations of licensed electrical contractors, association of mechanical contractors, and everybody involved a letter saying that the EEC will carry out random checks to identify any illegalities and will take the necessary measures to maintain the safety and reliability of the network, as well as the safety of its staff and the consumers, of course.
And what sort of punishment will be issued to people who have been found to be cheating?
Everybody were involved, all involved bodies were informed about this conduct of controls. The measures may be financial penalties or disconnection. They definitely need to get a new certificate of successful inspection after a new inspection by the EEC staff is done. So we will do these random checks. I repeat that it's only information about these illegal increases in installed capacity. And from then we will see. But you can imagine around 52,000 photovoltaic net metering systems are connected to the system. So if these 52,000 customers increase without informing EEC their system from, say, 7 kilowatts to 8 kilowatts, so 1 or 2 kilowatts each of them is going to cause a problem to the distribution network.
The bottom line, Christina, is that the grid does need to be upgraded somehow, I think. I mean, we've spoken about this many times on the programme. Have you any time frame on when that might happen? And then we need to talk about the metering, because it was supposed to be in play, I thought, pretty well island-wide a year or so ago, but it's still not, is it?
We follow all the plans announced by the Ministry of Energy. Regarding the upgrading of the grid, there are plans, but imagine this grid was built 60-70 years ago to bring electricity from the power stations to the towns and the villages. So all these new renewable energy sources plants, they are new. I mean, they were planned everywhere all around Cyprus. The grid needs to be upgraded. Of course, it really concerns mostly the independent distribution system operator. With the transmission system operator, there is a plan where we're planning to make this grid more reliable, to be able to have more renewable energy sources, plants all around Cyprus.
And finally, very quickly about the smart meter rollout, because I think we got money from the EU for that, from their recovery and resilience funds. How far along are we with that? Should every house have a smart meter?
For almost 3 years now, EEAC has been trying to implement this project through a tender process, where unfortunately several barriers are constantly appearing in the start of its implementation, with a serious risk of losing funding from the Recovery and Resilience Fund of the European Commission. It's about 35 million euros, the whole project. Since 3 years ago, we are still trying to implement this project according to a decision of the administrative court yesterday. The appeal of a tenderer was upheld, so the EEC Board of Directors at its meeting yesterday decided to file an appeal and at the same time to take the appropriate steps to secure an extension of the financing of the project from the EU.
Oh dear, if it's ending up in the courts, it's going to take forever, isn't it? So smart meters
are not... 3 years now.
Smart meters are not coming anytime soon, we could say, but let me just ask you whether or not, if you had the smart meters rolled out, it would be very easy for you to spot the people who are doing the wrong thing when it comes back to where we started and the photovoltaics.
Exactly, yes. If we had this automatic metering infrastructure, this would have been very easily to be detected.
Well, it's obviously being worked upon. Christina Papadopoulou, spokesperson for the Electricity Authority of Cyprus. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
It's the time of year here in Cyprus where, particularly if you have pets, you need to beware of the processionary caterpillar. It can be very dangerous, particularly for dogs and cats, and it's also not so good for humans. We're joined by Haris Nicolaou from the Department of Agriculture to bring us up to speed on what we need to be careful about. Haris, this is something we do have, I know, every year, but people just tend to think that caterpillars are caterpillars, and these are not, are they? They're rather dangerous.
Yeah. Okay, the problem with the caterpillar is not the same every year. It depends of the weather conditions and how hard or how soft is the winter. So if we don't have a very hard winter, the problem is bigger. So particularly this year, because the winter was not very cold, and we have a huge problem with the caterpillar. That's why we see a lot of places in Cyprus with this problem.
So tell us a bit about how we would recognise this caterpillar. It doesn't come on its own, does it? It's processionary because there can be hundreds of them together.
Yeah. First of all, this worm is creating nests on the pines, okay? It prefers the Pinus brutia, the common pine we have in Cyprus. So it's creating nests on the trees and they are hiding there. So this worm has hairs on the body of its body, so it's very easy to recognize it because we will not find it alone. Mainly it's moving with groups, more than 10, 20 or more individuals in a group, and they are hiding in these nests on the trees, on the pine trees.
What makes them come down from the pine trees?
Look, they have a life cycle. Okay, when they are worms, they are staying on the pine tree. They are hiding during the day in the nest, and during the night they just feed on the leaves of the pine. And during the day they are hiding in their nest. When they are getting mature, they are going down to the ground. They get into the ground, and they are making this pupa stage that they will stay there until next year, that they will become butterflies. The butterflies will go to the tree to lay their eggs, and then their eggs are becoming worms. And this is a life cycle of this insect.
The butterflies aren't dangerous, are they?
No, the butterflies are not dangerous. Dangerous is only the worms, because they are releasing these hairs of on their body, and these hairs are creating all these allergies on the humans and on the animals.
Are the hairs toxic, or is it just that they can release large quantities of hairs?
No, they are some kind of toxic, and you don't have to touch them. I mean, if the worm feels like it's dangerous, is releasing the hairs, and these hairs are flying to our skin. I mean, it's not necessary to touch the worm. They can release the hairs even if we are not touching it. I mean, in some centimeters away from the worm, if it feels that it's dangerous, it's releasing some of the hairs of the body.
So it's particularly dangerous, as I said at the beginning, for dogs, because they tend to sniff around the ground, don't they? And if they get close to a procession of these and think, oh, what's that? They could get thousands of these hairs. And I've read stories of people taking their animals to the vets and the tongue has swollen up, and they could kill a dog, couldn't they?
They can kill a dog, and especially if the hairs are stick on their tongues, in their mouths, or inside their nose, or in their eyes. And if there are many quantities of these hairs, maybe they cause their life.
Now, let's talk a bit about the effect it can have on humans and what we can do about it, because we don't want to kill animals, do we? I presume these things have a place in our ecosystems. Can you tell us what that place is? I mean, is there a positive contribution?
You mean how to minimize their populations? You mean how to control this population of the worms?
Well, yes, I just think that we shouldn't be killing things if we can avoid it, should we? Do they serve a purpose?
Look, the same with animals. We have to avoid areas just to walk on these areas, or to make a camping on these areas, or to rest in these areas. We have to avoid areas that they have the presence of these nests and of these insects. It's better to avoid these areas, because even if we pass near a pine that has nets, maybe we will affect it, and it's a problem. You don't have to touch.
So even if you're just in the vicinity of a nest and they're not actually processing, you can still get these hairs?
Yes, because the worms, they will feel that they are in danger, and they will release all these hairs from their body, and they will stuck on our skin. It's better to avoid the area.
Harris, let me ask you what these nests look like. I've seen some pictures, and they look a little bit like sort of grey candy floss. Is that right?
Yes, it's like a spider net, but it's very dense. It's like a nest that a spider is creating just to catch insects, but it's found in the tips of the branches of the pine, and the net is very, very dense. It looks like more or less like a bird nest, but it's a white grayish color. It has all these nets that look like a spider nest.
And do they only build these nests in pine trees, or could they be found elsewhere?
Only in pine trees, and in a certain species of pine tree, the Pinus brutia. This is a common pine. For example, we will not find this nest on the pine that is found in Troodos, in the peak of Troodos. After 1,300 meters, we can find only the Pinus nigra, the black pine. They like only the Pinus brutia, the pine that is very common from sea level up to 1,300, which is a common pine in Cyprus. I mean, because they feed on the leaves. They don't feed on the leaves of the black pine or the umbrella pine, which is another species of pine. They prefer only this particular species of pine.
And do they kill the trees when they feed on them?
No, this is a misunderstanding from people. The tree is not dried. Even if the worms will eat all the leaves from the pine. After the worm will leave the pine and go to the ground, the pine will again recover. So we never have killing of trees, but it's not nice to see a forest which is, it looks like a dry forest. But especially the mature pines, they never die from the caterpillars.
So that's a little bit of good news along with all of this bad news.
Only the young pines up to 5 to 10 years old, if they are infected every year, maybe they will die, the young pines. But for the mature pines, it's not a problem. I mean, they will recover again and again. It's not a problem for them.
In the meantime, we just warn people to be very careful and keep a lookout for these nests if they're out walking their dogs. And I presume cats. I presume cats are also in danger if they happen to climb up a tree where one of these things is.
Yes, but cats are more clever. I think they can protect themselves better. I think, but dogs they have a real problem from the caterpillar.
And I think that the ministry has got some rather innovative ideas as to how you can use nature to help control these pests.
Yeah, we're trying using a biological control by establishing 40 nests of special bird species like the hoopoe and the coal-tit. These birds feed on caterpillars. So we are trying, we start this year by the establishment of 40 nests, and if we have any positive results, we will continue with more communities in the future, just to try to control the population of the caterpillars only by biological means, not by using chemicals and other means which are harmful for nature.
Brilliant. Haris Nicolaou from the Department of Agriculture, many thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Rosie.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.